All right, now let's come back to South Africa. The deployment of soldiers to power stations has exacerbated many South Africans' anxiety about electricity supply. Government has deployed the South African National Defence Force to combat possible sabotage. The deployment comes at the same time as high stages of rolling blackouts in the festive season. It's feared this may affect tourism during the holidays. eNCA's senior reporter Aviwe Mtila is covering the story and joins us now live from Mpumalanga. Aviwe, this is where most of our power stations are, and obviously most of our problematic power stations are. And you were at the Tutuga power station this morning. Did you catch a glimpse of the members of the SANDF?
Not with our naked eye. In fact, we just moved from the Tutuga power station where some of the employees were telling us that they're already cracking the whip there, but they beyond the security cases. You'd see that on the entrances. It's still manned by the eSCM security guards, but the SANDF officials were reliably informed by some of the employees that, in fact, they were inside. We're now at the Grootfontein power station where we understand, given the information by employees, that they arrived by those SANDF choppers. Also inside, we tried to, move around the power station itself, but of course we couldn't spot any of the SANDF officials. But the employees tell us that they are there, as those suggestions come from the presidency. Vincent Mangwanya, the spokesperson, that at least 10 are situated in 4 power stations around Mpumalanga. That would be in the Grootfontein power station, the Tutuga power station, the Camden power station, one of those 4 power stations that have these operations going on. It is, of course, because of the vandalism, the sabotage, corruption, and the theft that's been ongoing. You speak to the CEO, they tell you how some of these maintenance contractors deliberately break the equipment, make sure that the equipment is broken, so that there could be those maintenance call-outs that would ensure that more money goes into these maintenance people. But if you speak to the employees on the ground, they'll tell you of incidences, that actually are in tune and line together when it comes to the stealing of the diesel itself on the ground here. So some of the reasoning why now the SANDF has been deployed on the ground here, and it is, of course, still indefinite to how long the deployment will be and whether it will move further. But there is those indications that, in fact, we could see some of this deployment in other coal-fired power stations around Mpumalanga as well.
And Aviwe, this usually is a national key point, and they don't allow anyone anywhere close by, and that also speaks to the possible sabotage. So I just want to know from you, in terms of going from power station to power station, was it easy to gain entry or be close enough to see anything?
Not at all, Maseko. We had to drive close to them, have to speak to the people on the ground. But the moment that we actually took out the cameras, that's when security was told to escort us away from the premises. In fact, we can see we're at least some 5 or so kilometers away from the Grootfontein power station. But earlier on, of course, we were there on the ground speaking to the employees. You would be told by Andre Director, the outgoing CEO of eSCM, that it's one of the contributing factors, the theft, the vandalism, the corruption, as well as sabotage at eSCM, that contributes at least 1 or 2 stages higher of the rolling blackouts. We've had the most number of rolling blackouts this year in the history of the 14 years of being under load shedding. So one of the key reasons that now SANDF has been deployed on the ground. In fact, coincidentally, I was at the ANC conference where we got to speak to the finance minister, Enoch Godongwana, mentioning that they've done some of the things wrong as government when it comes to tackling the rolling blackouts. In fact, for instance, they focus largely on fixing eSCM, where they should have actually focused on putting power to the grid. So these would be one of those efforts that would ensure that the grid, these coal-fired power stations, actually stabilize and no more sabotage can happen. As you know, the number of arrests that have happened in recent years, since May, when the agencies actually took a keener interest to actually why the sabotage was there. We understand that it's also not just because of the maintenance and these maintenance contractors wanting those contracts, but also to put an eye on the eSCM management in itself and them failing to get a grip on eSCM.
And Aviwe, power experts, if you've been able to speak to any of them or read any of the articles that have been written, what's the reaction to the SANDF and President Cyril Ramaphosa actually signing off for the SANDF to be at the power stations in South Africa?
Well, it's a positive one. That one, of course, that will help alleviate the burden of load shedding. As to how soon we can see that, it's still unclear at the moment. But in fact, there was a conversation that Sally Burdett had with the Public Enterprise Minister, Pravin Gordhan, just to try to gauge as well just how much of the sabotage equates to the load shedding itself. She didn't get a definite answer as to say this is how much sabotage is going in, but Pravin Gordhan painted up the various means of sabotage. As I've tried to lay out, for example, these maintenance contractors ensuring that the equipment is damaged, so they themselves could come in and ensure then that they repair those, putting money on their pockets. The other is the stealing of diesel, of course, and the deliberate sabotage to ensure that we have these rolling blackouts that would put the spotlight on the eSCA management and government itself in being unable to come to grips and grapple load shedding that we've had for the last 14 years at least.